Fox News Alert now. President Biden speaking in just about an hour from now, reacting to the Supreme Court decision, deciding against affirmative action, a huge blow. Programs at Harvard and the University of North Carolina effectively putting an end to the consideration of race in college admissions. All conservative justices sided in the majority in that decision. Liberal Justice Sonia Sotomayor, in her dissent, wrote, and I'm quoting, "Despite the court's unjustified exercise of power, the opinion today will serve only to highlight the court's own impotence in the face of an America whose cries for equality resound." Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, Republican candidate for president, joins me now. This is a monumental decision that has reversed a decision that has been in place for 19 years. What is your reaction today?
Well, Julie, I think this is a good day for America, honestly. This is the day where we understand that being judged by the content of our character, not the color of our skin, is what our Constitution wants. We are continuing to work on forming this more perfect union. Today is better than yesterday. This year better than last year. This decade better than last decade. The progress that we're seeing in this nation is palpable. That's good news for every single corridor of this nation, and one that we should celebrate. I thank God Almighty that America continues to work towards that concept of a more perfect union.
That kind of reminds me of what happened a few years back at Harvard. Again, Asian people had to score like 200 points higher than black people just to be let into Harvard. Because, man, Asian people were, as a portion of the population, were higher represented within that college. So again, they had scored 200 points higher than black people and 100 points higher than white people. Again, you don't do that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff is wrong. We've got to get that through our heads in this country, that we don't discriminate against people based upon race or color or sex or whatever. We don't, man, even if we're trying to right the wrongs of the past, which, again, you cannot do. You can't right the wrongs of the past. Again, unless you have a time machine, you can't do that. So, again, there needs to be one standard score to get in. One.
Well, I think the question is, how do you continue to create a culture where education is the goal for every single part of our community? One of the things that Harvard can do to make that even better is to eliminate any legacy programs where they have preferential treatment for legacy kids, to not allow for the professors, their kids to come to Harvard as well. If they're looking for a way to improve the footprint of Harvard, let's make sure that all admissions are based on academic scores and not just eliminating affirmative action. But let's look at the legacy programs. Let's look at the fact that the professors' kids get to go there as well. The good news for America, though, is that anyone from anywhere at any time can rise above, beyond their circumstances and live out their American dream. Whether that's going to Harvard, if you can't get into my alma mater, Charleston Southern University, maybe that's a better option. I don't know. I'd choose University of South Carolina or Clemson. Our education system is the marvel of the world. Thank God we're Americans, and thank God today we continue to see signs of progress in every aspect of American life.
Yeah, we certainly are. Today is a monumental day. I want to move on to a statement on the decision from former President Obama and the former First Lady. It reads in part, "My heart breaks for any young person out there who's wondering what their future holds and what kinds of chances will be open to them. Today is a reminder that we've got to do the work, not just to enact policies that reflect our values of equity and fairness, but to truly make those values real in all of our schools, workplaces, and neighborhoods." Now, what is that saying to African Americans in this country, coming from a former African American president and our very first African and only African American president? It's basically saying to me, would you concur, that African Americans, if you are going to apply to a college, well, now you are going to have a harder time. That is not a positive message to be sending to the American people, because that's not the case in this landmark decision.
Well, the good news is we're going to have another African-American president. His name will be Tim Scott, and this is January 2025. Here's what I would say to America today, that I am excited about who we are as a nation. I'm excited about the progress that we've seen in the rearview mirror. But what excites me the most about America is that when you look at the windshield of our future, it is bright for all of our kids. Unfortunately, the radical left have been co-opted by the teachers unions. And so making sure that we get back to providing quality education in every single zip code in this nation, K through 12, means that with quality education, K through 12, your child can go to the most elite colleges in America.
You know, guys, man, we got to understand in this country, we don't discriminate against people based upon race. We don't. Or, you know, anything, you know, again, sex or anything, we don't discriminate against folks. We need to make it equal across the board. You know, one standard, one set of standards across the board for everyone. And that's the way we need to have it. Because again, man, Thomas Sowell even did work on this as well. You know, he found out the people that were let into colleges like Harvard. Again, he taught at Harvard. But he found the people that were let in schools like Harvard just because of their race, they did not do as well. They did not do as well. And they wound up at being overwhelmed and dropping out. Because, again, they were in an institution where they should not have been. They might have been top of their class somewhere else. But because they were let into Harvard, because they scored lower than somebody else, they were not able to do the work. They ended up dropping out and looking at themselves as failure. Where again, if they would have gone to a state college, they would have been top of their class. So again, that's one thing we have to take into consideration. Also, man, we had to look at the people that lost their spots because of the color of their skin. They actually scored high enough to get in. They did well enough to get in. And they had to give up their spots to a black or brown person because of their race or their sex or whatever. And again, we have got to understand that people, we need to have the same set of standards across the board, because we're not doing any favors to anyone by artificially propping up people. We're not doing any kind of a favor to anyone by doing so. And people like Barack Obama, who are basically race baiters, again, have got to understand, again, number one, this man was the first black president. Black president is saying that we ought to have this. It breaks his heart that we don't have this, that they've returned this. Well, they shouldn't, because again, we don't need to artificially prop people up to get into schools. Again, if people want to get in on their own merit based upon whether they can do well enough to not only to function in the institution, but stay in the institution and not downgrade the institution. Again, there needs to be a set of standards that all of us equally have. And people like Barack Obama, they know this, man. They know this. But again, man, what do you expect from somebody who invites Black Lives Matter to the White House? What do you expect? But hey, guys, if you would, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Thanks.
You son of a